Heidi ho there, friends and neighbors. Bobby here today. Hey folks, today we have a 97 Ford Thunderbird, and the customer was complaining that it was hard to get it in out of park into drive or so forth. So I actually tore some stuff apart here, done a little diagnosing, and I think the electric switch is cable driven here that keeps the little lock bar in place until the foot brake is depressed. I think all of that operation is actually okay. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I found here, okay? The little plastic rod that goes down inside the shifter. Now this is like when you push on the button, it pushes this pin down and actually releases a lever inside here. And if you can look here, you can see that this little thing is actually sort of bent on the end here, as you can tell. All right, and when it's turned a certain way in here, it actually kind of binds up in here. I think that was causing just enough extra effort that it was being a problem for the customer. Okay, so what we've done, we've actually located this part here. Okay, I've got one ordered it off of eBay because they no longer make this part anymore, but I found someone down in Georgia that actually had one still in a stockpile of parts. So we're going to have this actually sent to us, okay? But until then, I am going to go ahead and take a heat gun and kind of straighten the tip on the end of this one here. And we're going to take this shifter and we're going to blow it out with compressed air because there's a lot of little dirt and grit and stuff in here. We're going to clean it up with some brake clean and then lubricate all the points on this shifter with some lithium grease. We're also going to clean down this shaft here as well. We're going to clean up this part, and after we straighten it, we're actually going to reassemble all this stuff, and we'll give it back to the customer until the part comes in, okay? Because when the part comes in, it'll be real simple to replace. All we got to do is pop the knob off, pull the plastic piece out, pop the knob right back on. So we're going to work on that here today, guys, and I'll show you a couple clips as we're reassembling everything and lubing everything up. And stay tuned for all of that good footage coming up. Okay, guys, with our heat gun here warming up, we're going to go ahead and start trying to apply some heat to the end of this part, and then we're going to get it where we can actually straighten the tip of it up. Alright, with a little bit of heating here, and we used a little small socket here to kind of bend the end of it once we got it heated up. I think we got this thing pretty straight. It's a lot straighter than it was. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue with the process, get this thing back together, and then we'll wait on this new part to show up in a week or so. Okay, back inside the car, we're going to take compressed air and we're going to blow all the dirt and grit and dust out of this shifter. Okay, next thing, guys, if you have a gun cleaning kit, you can take a brush for a 22 and you can actually go down inside here and you can clean any grit, any excess grease from the factory that is inside the shaft and get this nice and clean. Next, we'll take compressed air once again and we'll make sure we blow down the shaft and do a final blow, lubing it up. Any points on the shifter that need to be wiped clean, like inside this groove here where the shifter moves back and forth, any of the old grease, go ahead and remove that, wipe it clean, make sure it doesn't have any grit and stuff clung to it, and then we'll move on to the next step. At this point, we're going to go ahead and install our little plastic rod in here, and we're going to see how it fits. And I can already tell you that right there is a lot freer than it was before. Before, we could only turn it like one certain way for it to move back and forth, and that's actually with no lubricant on it at this time. Next, we want to take some white lithium grease, and we have some here in a spray can, and we're going to go ahead and squirt a little bit down inside our shaft here. Okay, that looks like that might be enough there. We also want to go around here on the rails of where our shifter operates, and we want to make sure we lube those up as well on both sides. And be careful not to squirt it all over the carpet. So we're going to go ahead and move the shifter back and forth, and we'll keep working and make sure we get it lubricated properly. Also, I want to take our little rod here and lay it. I just got it laying on a piece of plywood. And we want to generously lubricate it as well with the lithium grease and let it sit a few minutes, and we'll install it. Okay, hey, we're back in here. We've got everything lubed up, and I've actually tried it a couple times. One thing that definitely was not like this before, this piece here was kind of bound up inside here. This piece actually just goes in and out like butter now. And no matter which direction you have it twisted in, it still works good, okay? Before, it's like you turn it one way, it got even harder and harder to pull out, I think because it's bent on the tip. But anyway, we got the ignition on, foot off of the brake, and the lockout is functioning. And then we put our foot on the brake, and it comes out of gear now. I think we might have corrected the problem. We've got all our shifter linkage here lubed up. We've worked the shifter back and forth. I think we're ready to start putting this thing back together. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start reassembling. There's 4 bolts that hold this shifter in place, 2 on this end, 2 on the other end. They have 8mm heads. We're going to go ahead and zip all 4 of them down with our cordless impact. Next, we'll be putting our console back in place. And up here on this side, there's a screw. There's 1 on the other side. And then there's 2 right here back in the back. And there's 1 electrical connector here that you have to plug in. So let's go ahead and get this installed. With our console in place, we'll go ahead and install the screws that we just showed you. Also, there's 2 screws that go right here, one where each one of my fingertips is, and this little metal bracket actually also dials in on these little pegs here as well. So we'll get all this installed and move on to the next step. Next, we're going to clean up our shift indicator bezel. As you can see, there's a lot of dirt and grit. Possibly could have been a drink or something spilled on there at one time. So we're going to take compressed air, clean it up real good, and then we're going to take one of these little blue shop towels here, wipe everything up real good, and then I'll show you a couple lubricating points on this before we install. Okay, with everything clean now, we're going to lubricate this little push button thing that goes into the shifter. This is actually what pushes that little plastic rod down, and from the factory there was some lubricant about where the tip of my finger is. So we're going to use this 3M silicone paste here. I'm going to dab a little bit out here. I'm going to grab it with just a little small screwdriver, and we are going to place some of this silicone lube right here in this general area, okay? And then we're going to smear just a little bit a thin coat around this surface area right in here as well, being careful not to get too much to where it actually gets out here on the knob, because we don't want the customer to get this greasy stuff on their fingers when they're operating the car. We're going to lube this little area up here real good, and that's about all the lube we're going to need, guys. So stay tuned. Okay, with the bezel back in place, I'm going to go ahead and install 2 bolts right here, and there's 1 right up here, and they're 8mm headed bolts, and we'll put that back in place. Now, before I went too far, I wanted to check to make sure my little tab for my indicator was hooked around a little plastic rod that stuck out the side, and it is. So we got that hooked up. One other thing to pay attention to, you have a connector right here, okay? That connector, 2 of the wires go to the overdrive switch up here on the side, the little button, and 2 of them go to a little light that lights up your bezel, okay? Now the 2 wires for the overdrive switch go under the shifter bracket, okay, which is right underneath where this is. I can't really show it to you now. And the other ones actually go to the side, okay? So that's the only thing to just pay attention to when you're taking it apart, so you can put it back the same way, where you don't end up cutting one of the wires, you know, through the shifting motion. Okay, so that's about it, guys, and then we'll install the clip on the shifter and we'll be about done. Okay, guys, you have this little clip here. This is what actually holds your shifter in place, and down here on the front of it, you can't really see it, but there's a slot in the shifter that I'm going to slide this pin in until it locks onto the shaft, and that will hold the shifter knob in place. Okay, now for the last piece to put in place, our little shifter bezel here. We're going to place it down on here, and it has 2 screws just right back here on the back that you actually access from the with the console lid up. So we're going to go ahead and set it in place and snap it in place and put these 2 screws in, and we will call this job done. Okay, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for today. Looks like this shifter is actually working pretty much normal now. Foot off the brake, and you can't get it out of gear. You put your foot on the brake, and bam, there you go. So hopefully our customer will be happy with this. And like I told you, we do have that new rod on order coming from Georgia, and when we go to replace it, all we got to do is pull the snap ring out of the shifter, pull the shifter straight up, and put the rod down there in place, and that's all we'll have to do for that. Guys, thank you for watching a little video today. Hopefully you found it helpful. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.